Tips.
I am really good at coming in at the last minute and swooping in and saving the day. Who else loves to do this? My friend calls it the curse of competency. It's a pleasant way of saying it. You know, I am a recovering people pleaser, overcommitter. As a consultant, you know, when I started my consultancy, I thought I had to take on every single job. I didn't want to lose a contract, right? Because you got to have that pipeline, always moving, as an entrepreneur, as a volunteer, as a community member, as a good daughter, family member. I was always, you know, last minute just putting together a quick website, or my client would call me at the 11th hour and be like, oh my God, Christina, I forgot we have an open house tomorrow and we have 200 people arriving and we got to get this social media campaign out. And I would be like, no problem, let me just do that. And then they would go to sleep. And I would spend the next 10 hours awake all night trying to compensate for their lack of planning, right? And so I would find myself overworking, pulling all-nighters. I even would schedule time into my calendar every quarter to be sick. I would say, all right, for these days right here, this is when I'm going to be sick. And I would go until my body would say, can we relax now? And then sure enough, I'd get sick because, of course, you can't manage a lifestyle like that. And one day, I went to my friend's house. We used to co-work all the time. And I came into her house, and we'd set up at her kitchen table. And I went into her kitchen. I started unpacking my stuff, right? And I'm like, all right, we're going to co-work. Let's get some shit done. Yes! And she goes, just a minute. Let's go into the living room. I look over, and like, I don't even think I'd ever been in her living room before, right? 2 years, this relationship, because we worked together, we got stuff done. Come on into the living room. Okay, so I go into the living room. Have a seat. I'm like, all right, should I grab my computer? No, we're just, okay. So I sit down, and then she's like fussing in the kitchen, and she's like, so do you want some tea? I'm like, tea? What are we talking about? You're wasting my time. I'm here to work. This is what we do. This is what I do. I work. She comes into the living room. She sits down, hands me my tea, and she says, so how you doing? And I was like, well, you know, my hands hurt. They're numb today, but whatever. The doctor says it's carpal tunnel. It's fine. I'm just, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. You push through the pain. And she said, okay, well, now, what are we going to do about your hands, though? And I was like, what do you mean, my hands? She said, well, you only have one pair of hands. You can't use your hands. And I was like, she kept saying hands. She's from Chicago, so she says hands, like 2 syllables. And somehow, it was the way she was saying it. Like, I felt like she was really trying to get a message through to me that nobody else had before. And I said, my hands are fine. It's not a big deal. You know, I'm just gonna keep working. It's what I do. You got to keep that pipeline full, right? And she's like, all right, well, I'll tell you what. If you don't think your hands are that important, we'll go down to the Veterans Hospital tomorrow. And you can go talk to some soldiers who don't have their hands and tell them just how not important hands are, Christina. That was a wake-up call for me. Because I was working so much, I was not sleeping, and I was pulling all-nighters, and my hands were getting worse and worse. I couldn't open up water bottles. I could sometimes not even hold my fork. And so she had to sit me down and say, look, get it together. This is not okay. You have to make some changes. And so while it might not be that extreme for any of you, And now I can open water bottles, and my hands are great, I'm happy to say. But, maybe you don't need that much of a wake-up call, but still, maybe you are a people pleaser. Maybe you are still an overcommitter, right? Maybe you also have the curse of competency, as my friend Nancy will say. So, listen, I get it. We are all busy. We are all wanting to be productive. We all want to help other people. We have our regular work. We have conferences. We have networking. We have family stuff. We're go, 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 right? But it's really important how we manage our time and how we manage our energy, and it's wrapped around how we're setting boundaries. And so people used to tell me that I need to set boundaries. I need to have boundaries, better boundaries with my clients, better boundaries with my family. But I never knew what that looked like. So today I'm going to share with you some strategies and talk a little bit about the things that I did to take back control of my calendar and get the use of my hands back. My name is Christina Aldan. I am a brand strategy consultant based in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a speaker, I'm a trainer, I'm a soon-to-be author, and I sit on the board of directors for a STEM nonprofit and a mental health nonprofit as well. If you want to continue this conversation, please use the hashtag #LuckyNo. And I want to say thanks so much to Devoxx Poland. This is my 10th Devoxx conference. I've spoken in Devoxx UK, Devoxx Morocco, Devoxx US, and so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you. So these are the things that we're going to talk about today, and at the end, I'm going to share the exact strategies that I use, the action steps, the phrases, and even some ways that you can hack your brain. So why do we resist saying no? Well, sometimes we just don't want to miss a sale. Maybe you're in the startup phase, right? And you don't want to lose the opportunity to work with somebody. I get it. That makes sense. Sometimes we really want people to like us. Oh, you just don't want to be the bad guy, so you say yes all the time, and you end up writing yourself out and then overcommitting and maybe working your fingers to the bone. The other thing we do is we think we have to take on every single project. I just have to do it. It's my duty, it's my responsibility, it's what good business people do. Every entrepreneur has got to have their hustle, right? We also want to help. We want to help our aunt who just started her new quilting business and she just needs a quick little website to pop up or things like that. People seem to, especially family or friends, you want to help them succeed, so you think it'll just take me an hour or two, but then you really don't think of maybe you run into mistakes. What about the maintenance? All of that stuff, all that time, all those hours, they add up. Sometimes we resist saying no because we're actually having fun, but listen, even the fun things require energy. That was something I didn't ever consider. And I thought, oh, it's my downtime, I'm chilling, so I'm gonna go out. And listen, I live in Las Vegas. There is something fun to do every single night, 365 days of the year. I'm always missing out on something, okay? And so I had to get to the point where it was like, yeah, I know you got free front row tickets. Yeah, I know it's a really super awesome conference. I know you're in town visiting, but even the fun things take energy, and it's gonna have to be a no for me. Sometimes we're afraid of being rude, we're afraid of being unprofessional. Maybe you got a new job, maybe it's not part of the culture. Here's another one. Maybe you don't want to have any conflict. Who does this? You lower your boundaries because you're avoiding the conflict. And you might say things like, oh, it's just easier to just do it. Oh, it's just easier for me because then I don't have to deal with whatever, right? Sometimes it's cultural. Sometimes we resist saying no because it's cultural, and this could also be like a gender thing too, where maybe in that culture, men or women are more submissive, and so you don't want to say no. And then the other thing is that some people, They take no as a personal affront, right? They take it as an insult. And so maybe we don't want that relationship to end, so we take on their emotions and we process their emotions for them on their behalf. But then you're really kind of stunting their emotional growth because you're taking on their stuff and you're processing it. So it's really not a very good relationship. It's not a healthy relationship. And so you're trying to avoid being a jerk. It's funny, in fact, because I was on the call with the Java champions last month. They do the monthly meetup. And somebody said, yeah, but Christina, who cares? What's wrong with being a jerk? And I said, yeah, this talk isn't for you. This talk is for people who are overcommitters, who are people pleasers, and who have had a really hard time saying no because whatever reason, okay? So here's the thing when we resist saying no. When we resist saying no, it's usually because there's some kind of fear that we have, right? It all comes down to fear, and fear can present itself in a lot of different ways. There are a few fears that we have. There's fear of abandonment, which is a very, very common human fear. I study a lot about behavioral sciences, neuroscience, and emotional intelligence, and fear of abandonment comes up in almost everybody. Fear of missing out. Fear of missing out is so popular that we have an acronym for it, right? Who hasn't experienced FOMO before? And so the fear of not good enough will pop up every now and then. Some of you are shaking your heads about that one too. Fear of imperfection. It's got to be perfect, or it's not going to work. I have to be perfect, or this relationship isn't going to work. Also, the fear of not belonging. We want to have a sense of belonging to a tribe, to a community, to something, and we're afraid that if we say no, we're going to lose that connection. We're going to lose that community. The fear of change. A lot of us, we like things to be just how they are. We like them to stay exactly how they are, and when things change, it's really uncomfortable. The fear of judgment is the last fear that often comes up and why we say no, because we're concerned about what other people are going to think about us. Here's the deal, though. Those fears, they hold us back. They prevent us from doing our best work, from living our best lives. And so today I want to share with you some of the strategies and the things that I've learned. So why is saying no an important skill? Well, these boundaries that we set, that we're going to learn how to set today, they help us in managing the expectations of a relationship, right? And so setting those expectations is important, especially in business, especially if you're managing job requirements and you're looking at the specs and, you start getting scope creep. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then it just gets out of control. And so these boundaries are really important in your personal and your professional lives. Also, focus. Focus is a really important skill to have. A lot of people who struggle with ADHD, for example, will struggle with focus on things because oftentimes for them, it's that short-term memory that they struggle with. Our short-term memory gives us 2 to 18 seconds where that new information and the old data collide and we can process. But a lot of people who have ADHD, they can't focus and they struggle with their short-term memory subsystem. The good news, of course, is that we have 6 memory subsystems, so we can work on our processing in other ways. It's also an important skill because we need to know our why. Why is it important? Why are we doing this work? Am I getting my needs met? Or am I getting the client's needs met? When I was overcommitting and I was just taking on any project and I was doing things at the last minute and swooping in to save the day, it was really all about me. I told myself that it was all about them, but I'm helping them. It's very important. No, not so much. I was making about my own needs instead of about their needs. So it's important to clarify what is important and why you're doing the work that you're doing. This is how we are more successful in achieving our goals. Here's a good one. Who's heard the phrase, good fences make good neighbors? Good fences make good neighbors. When we are able to set the boundaries and the parameters of a relationship, you're showing respect for yourself and respect for your neighbor so that your horses don't go over into your neighbor's farm, right? And so good fences, they make good neighbors. This is how we create good quality relationships with people. The quality of our work is also going to suffer if we're not fully present. So whatever I do, I try to be as attentive as possible when I'm speaking with somebody, when I'm in the room with somebody, if I'm coaching someone one-on-one, even if it's on camera, I try to be as absolutely attentive as possible. So what happens when we say yes all the time? Our safety, our love, our home life, we start cutting out our personal needs. That's the first thing that happens when we say yes all the time. You could talk to any personal trainer or anybody who is in self-care, the massage industry, personal trainers, gym memberships, all drop when people start getting busy. It's the first thing that they cut out of their lives. When we say yes all the time, other things, they tend to go by the wayside. We get sick all the time. Remember, I used to schedule time every quarter just for me to be sick and collapse. We get overwhelmed. Who's felt like this in the past couple of years? Overwhelmed. And then we feel like, we haven't accomplished anything. We're spinning our wheels and we're not getting anything done. It actually has the opposite effect of us wanting to be productive and achieving our goals. When we say yes all the time, we speed through things. So I used to rush. I'd burst out of my office and people would be like, whoa, slow down, where are you going? I'd drop things and I picked, oh, sorry, my hands are sore. I don't even know where I'm left and right. And I would bulldoze people. And my anxiety then would cause people in the office stress, which really wasn't fair to them either. So when we say yes all the time, we have a tendency to not be aware of other people. When we say yes all the time, we end up making mistakes. We're not doing our best work. In fact, we're putting in maybe 80% or 70% or sometimes even worse, and the quality of our work will suffer because we make fewer mistakes when we're not rushed. Here's the other thing. I became the flake friend. My friends would say, oh, all right, they'd confirm, we're going to dinner, we're going to that show, I got tickets, and I would confirm, you got it, I'm there, we're gonna have so much fun, I got my outfit, this is gonna be great, and at the last minute, what would I do? I'd call them up and say, I'm sorry, it's not gonna work. Why? I'm so busy. I have a deadline. My client needs a last minute thing. They did this, but I thought you were done with that. Oh yeah, but they wanted to add 4 more pages and an e-commerce store, and I'm just going to knock that out real quick over the weekend. And so then my friends would get really upset with me because I became the flaky friend at the last minute. Here's another thing that we do. We get resentful of other people when we say yes all the time. The people we want to help, we want to serve. So if you have a pizza night scheduled and you worked for the money for the pizza and you ordered the pizza or maybe you cooked it and then you eat the pizza with your family, your friends, and then at the end everybody goes, oh, can I help you clean up? And you're like, oh no, I got it, I'm fine. And then everybody leaves and you're left with a big mess. And you're scrubbing those dishes, and you're like, nobody helped me, and nobody helped me make the pizza, and nobody helped me clean, and nobody's helping me clean up. and you end up actually feeling resentful toward the people that you wanted to help in the first place. So saying yes all the time really doesn't serve you in those relationships. So here are some strategies that I use to practice the skill of setting boundaries without feeling like I'm being a jerk. Nowadays, I can say no. I don't mind if I'm being a jerk, but there had to be some kind of a bridge to kind of get there, right? And so these are the strategies that I use. Then we're going to talk about exact phrases and responses, and then also some ways that you can hack your brain. So the first action step I want to tell you and share is to block time and to honor it. I would block time out for exercise, for lunch, and then somebody would call, a client would call last minute, and I would say, oh, yeah, no problem. And I'd write myself out and write them in. And so if you're going to block time for yourself, then keep it. Do not erase yourself out to put other people ahead of you. The next thing you can do is you can ask yourself, am I feeling obligated to do this? Yeah, I want to do you a favor and I want to help, but am I going to resent it later? If you're feeling obligated to do it, then chances are you're going to feel resentful about it later. The other thing that you can do is you can ask, what would it take to make this an emphatic yes? So sometimes maybe it's just a, yes, I suppose I could do it. Right? It's not a, yes, let's do it. And so sometimes you can pause and you can ask yourself, what would it take to make this an emphatic yes? And I've used this a lot in negotiations with my mentees, or if I am doing executive coaching, people who are looking for new jobs or people who are looking to increase their salaries. You can pause and you can say, what would it take to make this an emphatic yes? Like, yeah, I could go with this job. It's kind of missing this. I could go with this opportunity, but it's kind of missing this. Think about those elements and get really clear, because those are going to be your negotiating points as you move forward in the conversation or in pursuing your job. The other thing you can do is you can gamify it. I let my friends know, I let my family know. I did this thing on Facebook where I would ask people, quick, somebody ask me a no question. And then they would all try to get me to say yes. And so I ended up getting these really convoluted answers and responses on Facebook where I would go, well, I don't not want to go to the show with you, but it would just get really weird. But it was fun for me because then I was practicing all these different ways and creative ways that I could say no in a way that's fun, in a way that's safe, because it was with my friends and family, and they already knew what my intentions were. So you can practice and you can gamify it. The other thing is to actually decide, to make a decision and then stick to it. Being wishy-washy is really unprofessional, and being wishy-washy is not dependable. People, remember, I was the flake friend, right? So suddenly people started to depend on me less and know that there's a pretty good chance that she might just let me down, And so if you're not going to honor your boundaries, then why should anybody else, right? And so here are some other things that I used to hack your brain. And so remember, I talk about emotional intelligence a lot. I'm going to be doing a keynote tomorrow about brain performance and memory, and that's going to talk a little bit more about neuroscience and how we encode and store and retrieve data. But we can hack our brain in a lot of different ways and a lot of different creative ways. So one way that we could do that is by tapping into our subconscious mind and helping to shift those patterns that we have. And with repetition over and over again, eventually what we will do is we will start to embody that information. We'll be able to start to feel those feelings, and then it just becomes standard response for us. We have our cognitive behavior, and then we also have our observable responses. And so when we hack our brain and use different techniques from all different angles, it can really help us to embody this information quicker. And so what I encourage people to do is become a student of saying no. And for 3 months, just decide, all right, on this date, 3 months from here, I am going to be an expert at saying no. And you can take 3 months and practice all of these strategies, any of these strategies, over and over again, just a little bit every day. That is how change happens. It's incremental change. It's with incremental changes that big changes happen. And so you can change your password and change your mind. I did this. I logged out of Twitter and Facebook every day. How many times do we log in to social media every day? About 17,000. And so I changed my password to something like, just say no, or saying no comes easily to me, or no way, Jose. And I just changed my passwords, and I kind of smiled every time I did it, because then it also was another reminder for me, hey, yeah, that's right, for the next 3 months, I'm practicing saying no. And so you could change your password so that every single time you log into Twitter, you are typing in that phrase every single time. The other thing that you can do is to see it from another person's perspective. And so I used to only see it from my perspective. I'm swooping in. I'm saving the day. Here I go. Wow, this is so great. Look at me. I'm good enough. I'm helpful enough. People like me, right? And I was only seeing it from my perspective. I was only looking at it from my own self-serving needs. And so if you can shift your perspective to a third-party perspective. People used to tell me what that looks like, but I didn't actually know how to do it in practice. And so the way to do it in practice, in fact, we can do this, we have time today, so everybody, let's just practice shifting our perspective. I want everybody to please close your eyes. Just sit there, take a deep breath, and we're going to close our eyes. And so with your eyes closed, we're going to take one deep breath together. Here it goes. Ah, that feels good. Cool. Let's take another one of those together. All right, and I want you to just sit in your chair and kind of just feel what it's like to be you. All right, you're sitting in your chair. Maybe you're a little bit hot. For me, this is perfect weather because I came from Vegas. It was 110 degrees Fahrenheit when I left. You're sitting there looking at me up on stage. I'm really excited to be here. I wave my hands around a lot. You know what it's like to be you as you're thinking. You can see your thoughts. You can see me on stage in your mind's eye, and you can see it from a first person's perspective. And so now I want everybody to take another deep breath. Keep your eyes closed. Here we go. And one more. And I want you to think about it from my perspective. And now you can see me, and I'm up here pacing, still waving my arms around. I'm excited to be here. Love the weather. I am not hot at all. And I'm talking, and I'm excited to be at Devoxx, Poland. And you can imagine what it's like to be me on stage. And I'm excited. And this is cool. And I've got some friends in the audience. It's great to see them because in-person conferences have been away for so long. And this is really fun. And you can imagine what it's like from a second-person point of view. And I want you to keep your eyes closed now, and we're going to just take 2 more breaths together. Ready? And one more, here we go. And now I want you to zoom out of the auditorium and look at us as if you're watching TV. And you can see me up here, and I'm still pacing, and I'm walking around, and everybody's in the audience, and you've got your eyes closed. Kate, close your eyes in the back. You've got your eyes closed, and everybody's chilling. And you can see as if we're watching on TV. And for me, it's like an old-timey TV with one of those dials. Maybe you might have a flat-screen TV with a remote control. Don't change the channel yet. Just keep watching how we are interacting, me on stage with the audience in their seats. And you can see it now from a third person's perspective, third party point of view. And as we take 2 more breaths again, you can come right back to your own seat and open your eyes. So how many people here were able to see it from their own perspective? Everybody should raise their hands. Yes, first person point of view. I know what it's like to be me, Christina. Sure, I got that. How many people could see it from my perspective? Raise your hands if you could see it from my point of view. Really excited up here. Love the temperature. Love Krakow. This is awesome. And then who could see it as if they were watching it on TV? That's great. So many people. This is really awesome. So that's the third person point of view. It's really easy to do while you're hanging out relaxed at a conference. It's not so easy to do with like your teenage son who is sitting here making you crazy, asking if you use the car and haven't done their chores or haven't whatever, right? It's really easy to do it here when we're in a nice, safe, relaxed setting. It's not as easy to do when you've got a client on the other side and they're really trying to get additional features, additional work, whatever that is, and you're not prepared to do it. And so I encourage you to practice shifting your perspective in moments where it's easier, because that way, in those moments when it's hard, your brain is already got those neural pathways. As soon as we start doing a new action, a new thought, a new activity, within 5 or 6 hours, we start creating new neural pathways for that behavior. And so if you're doing that in this kind of a setting or in an easier setting, when it's harder, you're going to be able to recall that information. Those neural pathways are going to be there for you. And every time you do it, you're going to reinforce that learning. Another way you can hack your brain is through neuro-linguistic programming. Dr. Heidi Heron has a lot of cool free stuff out on the internet. She is from Australia, and you can learn through neuro-linguistic programming how to hack your brain and change the messages and the patterns and identify those patterns and break them up in your subconscious mind. You can also do self-hypnosis. There was a time in my life where I did self-hypnosis or NLP almost every single day for 3 years, and it really helped me jumpstart my learning and changing those unhealthy habits and those unhealthy behaviors that I had. A couple more, that's right, audiobooks. There is an audiobook called The 15 Rules of Conscious Leadership. That's really cool. I have on my YouTube channel a playlist, in fact, of all 15 rules of conscious leadership. If you aren't a person who wants to sit down and take the time to read a book, you could just go watch the 3-minute, 5-minute videos and take the Cliff's Notes of it. The other thing you can do is use the Tapping Solutions app. So Tapping Solutions app has different things for anxiety, for flying, for different kinds of issues that are influencing your neurological system that you might not really understand how to break those patterns. And so tapping is a really helpful way to break those patterns up. And so at the end of the day, the thing about all this, again, is that practice makes perfect. And so this is why I tell people and encourage people to take a 3-month study of this. It's almost like you have to do a self-directed study all on your own for 3 months in order to change these patterns. Remember, you start right at 5 or 6 hours to create those new neural pathways. So imagine how much reinforcing those pathways would help you after just 3 months. So you can read something every day about learning to say no. There are blog posts, there are lots of different books and information out there about boundaries. You can talk to your Facebook tribe and say, hey, somebody asked me a no question. And that's a real fun way to do it. You can listen to audio, and you can set reminders. Even if you don't read the reminders on your phone, on your calendar, once they pop up and you see them, you can go, oh, all right, got it. Your subconscious mind will quickly read it because our brains will read things really fast, even if it doesn't necessarily register. It'll be embedded into your subconscious mind. Watch videos. You could put pen to paper. It used to be that we thought that our brains were left brain or right brain, that our thinking was left brain or right brain thinking. And that's not true. Our brains actually store data in chunks, in different kinds of sections in our brain. And that is how we remember things. So putting pen to paper engages multiple senses, engages different parts of your brain. And the more that we can kind of recruit those systems and those memory subsystems, the better it's going to be retained in our long-term memory. We also teach best what we need to learn. And so if you teach what you're learning to other people, then you embody that information a lot more. When I started teaching this workshop, it started sinking in even more and reinforcing a lot of those messages even better for me, because when we teach other people what we're learning or what we've learned, it helps us to understand the gaps maybe that we have, or it helps us to understand a different person's perspective when we see how they're taking in the information. And so in that, we learn more and we learn better. You can also role play. You can do things like pretending that you've already said no. Or you can grab a friend and say, okay, here's the scene. We're going to set up this scene, and then we're going to pretend that I said no, and then, we had a thing, and then I told you no, and I was really afraid and nervous that you were going to hate me, but then you didn't. And then you just kind of go, all right, go. And for 3 to 5 minutes, you role play that scene as if you already have said no. Because then what happens is your body actually takes in those feelings and imprints that into your nervous system. And so role-playing these situations out will help you in learning to set boundaries. So here are some of the phrases that helped me when I was looking to say no. Here's one. Thanks so much for thinking of me. Unfortunately, I've got another commitment at that time. I'm copying Jane Doe, who's an expert on this subject, and she's more than qualified to speak at your event. So you're saying, thanks so much, and I'm passing you off to somebody else in a very nice, pleasant, tactful way, right? You don't have to be a jerk about this stuff. Here's another one. I'm not the best person to help out with this. There's probably someone more appropriate to ask. And so in this case, you're not really putting Jane Doe on the spot, right? But you are telling them, nah, I'm not your girl. This is just not for me right now. And that's a nice way to say no. Here's one. If it were any other day or time, I would totally do it. Unfortunately, I have another commitment. And so this lets them know that, yeah, I am interested. Sometimes I'll follow this up with a keep me in mind for next time, but it's important to only put that in there if you really mean it. But unfortunately, I have another commitment. That's a nice way to say no, right? You can do that. It's not really you being a jerk. Here's one. I use this one all the time. I love it. It just doesn't work for my calendar. That gosh darn calendar again. I don't know. You know what? If you got problems, take it up with the calendar. Go talk to my calendar. It's not my fault. It's not on me. And so that really helped me because it just doesn't work for my calendar. Takes out the me out of it, right? And it's more of an object. Here's one. This doesn't meet my needs right now, but I'll keep you in mind for future reference. I use this one especially on those insistent or persistent LinkedIn people that contact me a lot. I just copy paste this one in after I've said, no, I'm really not. No thanks, I'm happy with my current situation. No thanks, I'm happy with my current team. No, but it doesn't meet my needs now. I'll keep you in mind for future reference. You know, it's good to kind of maybe keep that information around. Here's one. No, unfortunately, it looks like it won't work for me. This is a little bit more assertive for you. If you're really, really been a people pleaser for most of your life, this one might be a little bit difficult for you. Here's one. Thank you for thinking of me. Unfortunately, my calendar's full at the moment. That darn calendar again. I just, blame it on the calendar. What does the first week of the next month look like for you? I like to buffer things and really kind of push them out a little bit, right? I would get clients who wanted things right now, and I would jump. Or sometimes they would have this sense of urgency, and I would jump on it and get it done, and then they would wait for like 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or months, and I was like, why did I hustle when you really weren't in that much of a hurry? So it's really important to ask people about their timelines and to buffer your own if you do want to spend some time with them. I just don't feel like I could give you my full time and attention on this. This is an important one if you have a supervisor or manager who's always piling things on and piling things on and piling things on, and you haven't communicated to them what's on your plate, right? A really good way to do it also is to ask them, I see I have these other things that I'm working on. What would you like me to deprioritize to work on this, right? So that way it communicates to them that your plate is full and you already have a lot of things that you're working on, and you're just asking them for some guidance on what would be a bigger priority. Here's one. Thanks for asking me, but I'm already committed to something that day. These are really good phrases that help me out when people would ask me to do things and I didn't want to hurt their feelings. I didn't want to be a jerk, but, I still kind of wanted to be nice about saying no. Here's one. I promised my business partner I wouldn't take on any more projects. Blame it on the business partner. I used to manage Girls in Tech Las Vegas with my co-managing director for almost 4 years, and we'd do all these projects, and I had so much fun in the community. We'd be teaching girls code and graphic design. We made the first ever 3D printed Girl Scout badge, which was really fun. And so I was always saying yes to these fun things, and my co-managing director, who's a project manager, she would be like, no, why are we doing this? And then it got to the point where she said, okay, just blame it on me. Just tell everybody, no, Amber says no, and we're not doing this anymore. And so that's what I would do. She said, you're allowed to say yes to 3 things, and then after that, just blame me. 3 things a month, that's it. We're not doing any more events than that. And then the last phrase is that I can't do that, but let me tell you what I can commit to. And this is also helpful in certain kinds of partnerships. We do a lot of collaborations with other dev shops and other like social media marketers in my marketing stuff. And so I'll let people know, this is what I can commit to. I can help with maybe the initial designs and discovery session, but I can't do the whole project. I can help you just getting your WordPress things set up for, Auntie's new quilting business, but I'm not going to upload all the content, I'm not going to maintain it, I'm not going to manage it. And so you're setting those clear boundaries and managing their expectations. And if you tried all of these things and the other person is still pushing, oh, come on, Christina, but I have tickets. Oh, but I'm only in town for 3 days. But why did you say no? And they're not taking no for an answer, and they're not respecting your boundaries. Then you're just dealing with a jerk, and you have perfect permission from me to just turn around and bounce and remove yourself from the situation. Because you know what? If people aren't taking no for an answer, if they're not respecting your boundaries, and if they're being rude, then you have my permission to be rude right back to them, okay? It's gonna happen. It's totally gonna happen. I wanna leave you with a couple words of caution. And so one of those is that prevent yourself from saying, keep me in mind for next time if you don't really mean it, right? At the end of the day, people would much rather prefer that you are honest with them and upfront instead of passive-aggressive, because next time's going to come around and they're going to invite you and you're going to say no again, and that damages that relationship because you're not living in integrity. The other thing is to beware of the reluctant yes. Because a reluctant yes, it's still a no, right? So think about, what would this take to become an emphatic yes, to make it something that I would really be on board with? How many times in your life, I know I used to do this all the time, I used to say, well, I guess I could make it work. Well, I guess if I rearranged this, if I wrote out exercise, if I didn't eat, if I didn't sleep, if I didn't see my family, sure, no problem. I can do that for you. And then I end up being resentful, And so think about that. It has to be a definitive yes. And at the end of the day, I would like you all to remember that no is a complete sentence. So using these techniques and these strategies, it's helped me gain more control over my schedule. I have removed frustration and communication with my team and setting my expectations with clients and in the initial requirements and specs. I can sleep better at night. I have weekends now. I close my office at 5 or 6 p.m. and I take my evenings off, which is great. And I'm not sick. I'm not suffering from burnout regularly. And that's really great. At the end of the day, we're talking about quality of life. We're talking about our own health. And that's time that you cannot get back if you're wasting time resentful that you've said yes or you've overcommitted just because you're trying to be a people pleaser. And so if we look deeper into the why that we're doing something and what that motivation is, it can really help us create those healthy boundaries and get better results at work and in our relationships. And you don't have to be a jerk about it. Thank you very much.